Hello, everyone. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit more about my personal perspectives on astrology, human design, and gene keys, because you may know by now that astrology actually impacts your human design and also your gene keys profile. And first of all, I want to say that everything that I'm sharing here, that is my personal view of things. That's my truth. And that obviously can also change over time. And I always invite you to question everything and really tune into your body so that you get to decide what feels right and true for yourself. And ultimately, all these tools like human design, astrology, and gene keys, and also other things, right? Like personality tests, like the DISC assessment or the Enneagram. And there's, I know, lots and lots more out there. All they're here for is for you to find validation about something that you probably already know about yourself, but you haven't really given yourself fully permission to be who you are. And I think at some point we transcend all of these systems and we just have that courage to be ourselves, right? We no longer let ourselves hold back because somebody said something or somebody expected something of you, right? You do you, you trust yourself. That's what is my truth with all these systems out there. Like I've said many times, human design has absolutely changed my life. I absolutely love it. I think I see it very different than most people out there. And I love how I talk about it. I love how I bring it out into the world. So in this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of, and I called it on purpose a little bit like predictions, because I really feel that things are about to shift and change. And everything that I'm sharing here in this video has come about from me following my body's authority, my inner knowing. And I think that's what human design is all about, to experiment with that and see where that leads you. So without further ado, I will start sharing my screen now so that you also have something to look at. So I think it's going to be a little bit easier. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is the tropical and the true sidereal, and what I believe is my truth with that. So the tropical astrology system is what is mostly being used, right? If you read a horoscope in like a magazine, it's usually always tropical. And your sun sign, what you probably know, is usually based on tropical. The tropical system is based with the static seasons of the earth, and at some time they kind of fixed that. And they disregard the precession of the equinoxes. And what this basically means is that every 72 years ish, there's a 1 degree shift. And over the course of thousands and thousands of years, we quite have a shift in the sky. So at some point in time, about 2000 or over 2000 years ago, the tropical system and the true sidereal. So the true sidereal is really what's currently in the sky. And there's lots of apps out there that you can get for free on your smartphones, where you can look up in the sky and you can see where the sun is right now, for example. And most likely the sun will be in a different sign than what mainstream is telling you. And for me, that was a big aha moment. I was like, oh, hold on. I have been just blindly believing that this is what's happening in the sky, but it's actually not really happening. So the true sidereal takes that into account. And like I said, at some point there was the same tropical and true sidereal over 2000 years ago, where it was really what's currently happening in the sky. But because they fixed it with the seasons, and that basically means that every year at a certain time, so Aries, when the spring equinox comes about, is like when the sun at that time moved into Aries. So they fixed that every year at that time again, they say that, okay, it's always going to be in Aries. But today in 2024, at the time of the spring equinox, the sun was like deeply in Pisces. It wasn't in Aries yet. Actually, as I'm speaking right now is, let me check the date, Tuesday, the 16th, April 2024. The sun is actually still in Pisces if you look into the sky, and it's about to move into Aries, I think, later this week. So again, that feels true to me. I'm not telling you that tropical is wrong here, but for me, it just feels literally like, okay, I can be straight because I can fully allow myself to receive that energy with a straight line, what is coming from the universe. And when I can allow that, I think I can be of my truest essence, you know. And I feel like a little bit of the tropical, okay, Aries is actually not happening yet. So I'm kind of bending myself forward, or I have to bend myself backward to actually align with the energies that are actually happening in the sky. And I'm going to talk more a little bit about it, what my reasoning behind that is, and what I think the message for us as humans is with that. So the other thing that I also find very interesting in tropical, we have 12 signs, and you probably all know them, that are all the same size. They're all 30 degrees. But again, in the sky, if you look at it, the signs or the constellations, they're very different in size. Libra, for example, I think is on the smaller side. Also, Aries is very small, but Pisces is huge, and so is Virgo. And again, for me, it's like I rather go with nature, how it really is. That feels more true to me, right? And again, I'm not saying Tropical got it wrong. It feels off to me, I have to say this, right? And if I go with what's really in the sky, that feels more true to myself. And there's also a 13th sign called Ophiuchus, which is right next to Scorpio. And that, again, you can really see it up in the sky. It's there. And obviously with 13 signs, and then because we have the 12 houses, right, it doesn't fit as nicely. So I think with the tropical, they did a really amazing job to make it all fit in beautiful ways, right? So it's all the same size. It's 12 signs, 12 houses. And you may already know that even in a tropical, from astrology, you can have very different birth charts, especially with the houses, depending on what house system you use, because there's lots of different ones there. Now, the true Sidereal uses the house sign system where the houses are all the same size. So that's just to give you a little bit of a background what the difference there is. And the other thing I want to share with you is that the astrology, for some reason, for many, many years, it didn't resonate with me. And I don't know why. I couldn't explain. But when I always heard these like predictions, and I was like, oh, well, maybe, but I was kind of like, well, maybe I'm immune to that, but I'm not really feeling it that much, right? And I never really had a pull also to learn and study. I have to say, I did take one course over a year ago, and I did it. But again, something felt off. I wasn't further motivated to go deeper into that. And I never went into like, oh, let me give astrology readings. It just didn't spark me in some way. But when I learned about true sidereal astrology, oh my gosh, things changed. All of a sudden, my body was like, "Ooh, what is this?" And it felt so accurate. And I'm a math nerd, so I like when things are accurate and the numbers are matching. And even the true sidereal, right? I mean, we still have to make some kind of estimations and how we actually calculate this. So, but I believe it's as accurate as possible as we can with the technology that is available to us. And then there are some thoughts out there that the tropical is more about the physical and the 3D elements of the personality, and that the true sidereal describes more the essence of the personality and the soul. So in a way, it's also like both are important, right? And I have to say that the tropical, not the astrology so much, but my tropical human design chart, for example, on my Gene Keys profile, because the traditional human design and the traditional Gene Keys are always based on the tropical astrology, okay? And I'm going to explain here in a little bit, okay, now how is this going to impact your human design or Gene Keys if I follow the true sidereal, right? So now let's move on to the next here. So here I want to show you this is my birth chart, my natal astrology chart, right? On the left, you can see that I'm a sun Aquarius, moon in Gemini, and my ascendant is in Sagittarius. And then on the right-hand side, I have my true sidereal. So this is based on my tropical. Yeah. And then on the right here, this is my true sidereal chart. And you can see it looks very similar in some way, but something has slightly shifted. So now my sun here was in Aquarius, right? But now it's not quite in Aquarius yet. It's like almost a sign before that. So it's actually in Capricorn. Same with the moon. It was here in Gemini, right? Already in the second half. And now it's more here in Taurus, right? So it's about 30 degree before what it was in the tropical chart, right? And this is what you can see for all the other planets as well, right? It's just slightly shifted. But for me, for example, I went from having so I have this trine, I think here, it was all in air signs, right? But the one feedback I always receive from people is like, hey, you're so grounding. And I was like, this is odd because I have so much air energy, and I can also relate to the air energy, obviously. I like to talk, I have my podcast, I like to share information and all these good things, right? But overall, as a person, I really felt really strongly about having more earth energy. And it's very interesting that in my true sidereal chart, this trine is now in all earth elements, right? So my moon is in Taurus, my sun is in Capricorn, and then here it's all in Virgo, right? So it's all earth signs. And that just fit much more to me. Also, the moon in Taurus, the ascendant also in Scorpio, feels more true than what the resonance was for me in the tropical. But I have to say, the tropical also definitely was close with that, right? And so, again, so there seems to be a slight shift. Again, I have just found that the true sidereal resonated the most with myself, and obviously you can play with them and see how the different sidereals also feel true to you. Now, the tricky question now is that, okay, what is this going to do now with human design and the gene keys? And those of you that have been following me along, you probably already know that I have been into all things true sidereal and this thing called also now cosmic human design. So cosmic human design is basically based on true sidereal astrology. And I did some other videos about this that you can find here on my YouTube channel where I explain this more, also how you can get these charts and all that good stuff. But your human design chart basically changes. So in my astrology that is based on tropical, if I use that for human design, which is a typical normal human design, right, that you will get when you pull the human design charts, I'm a 2-4 manifesting generator. And again, it really resonates with me. It has changed my life. It has been incredible. And one of the things that was always interesting for me, I absolutely love, the types in human design. It has given me so much permission to be myself more. But I have found over the years that the 64 gates is really what drew me the most or talked to me the most, because it was such fundamental truth and enlightening wisdom for me, like how the universe works. And this is also with the gene keys. And with the types that we have in human design, so we have a projector, a manifestor, generator, manifesting generator, and reflector, each is like an archetype that gives us a story, but there's a lot of overlap. So I have found over and over again people telling me, including myself, hey, I really love my type, but I can also relate to the projector a lot. I can also relate to this a lot. I can also relate to that. And I always said, like, yeah, that's normal because your chart is so multifaceted. We cannot just categorize this into these types and see this as completely separate entities. I mean, just think about it. We have billions of humans. We cannot categorize that into 5, right? While again, I find a lot of value in that. So let's look now at these pictures here. So this is the tropical, as you can see, right? We have the same size of the signs, the constellations, evenly 30 degrees. And this is how my chart came about. So in this case, it was saying that at the time I was born, the sun was in gate 13. And here the sun is in actually Aquarius. And my earth was in gate 7. Now, in the true sidereal, and you can see this here, right? We have to, because the human design mandala goes this way, like counterclockwise, like we have to shift back. And it's again, these like 31, 32 degree, which is from this precession of the equinoxes, from like 1 degree shift every 72 years, which over 2000 years has accumulated to about 31, 32 degree. And this is why in my true sidereal or cosmic human design chart, my sun is now in gate 38 and actually in Capricorn, right? So everything is just shifted back, if that makes sense. And it changes all these gates. And when you have different gates in your human design chart, then you have different centers defined, you become a different type. And as you can see, my chart looks very different. There are some similarities, but there's a lot of differences, right? So the centers I have defined, they change a lot. Some also stay the same. But, that is what is for people a little bit of an identity crisis, because we can so identify with a type. And I have to tell you, like, both charts resonate with me. I do feel where I'm at right now, at least in my life, the true sidereal chart talks to me more, has even deeper resonance. But I also have a lot of similarities in both charts. And obviously, I'm not going to go into that into depth right now. That's something I also do in readings, where I can, give you some insights about your tropical human design chart and your true sidereal human design chart, and kind of build a bridge, right? And create like a story, because there is a lot of similarities with that. And because of my approach with human design, where I have found that the most wisdom I've always gained from these 64 gates, it really made my life very easy when I learned about true sidereal astrology and this impact on human design, because I was like, yeah, well, that's beautiful, because I just have different gates now. I have a little bit different energies. And it also shows that we as humans, we evolve and we can see ourselves from different perspectives, right? Just like in astrology, we have so many different systems out there, and that's okay for us. But in human design, it becomes a problem because it very quickly changes the type. And there are some other things. So in human design, we have these variables. It's not right here on this chart, but it's usually like these arrows you have, and there's some numbers underneath. And they change very, very, very quickly. I mean, if the nurse in the hospital when you were born got your birth time wrong by a few minutes, like, they may actually be off already, right? And also the moon moves very fast. So if um again, you got it a little bit wrong, your birth time, or it's a little bit estimated, like, you may already a different type than you were like 5 hours or an hour ago, for example, right? Because the moon activates a gate. And like, for example, in this chart here, if gate 21 would be defined, then all of a sudden, because here I'm a 5-1 generator, then all of a sudden I would become a manifesting generator. And I have also looked some other variations with these degrees. So if I'm using these calculations from the true sidereal, which is something between 31 and 32 degree, but there are also some other, calculations you can play with. Oh, what if it would have been 33 degree, right? It's just 1 degree and very close. Then I would be a splenic manifester, and I think that's where this whole thing with these characteristics we have for the types, and we put this too much into a box and categorize it, it doesn't work anymore, right? Because it's not flexible, because we have learned in human design that a manifester has a very different aura than a generator, but if it can so quickly change, then is this really the case? So just questioning that, right? And asking yourself to open up to different kind of perspectives, and actually, again, inviting you to really feel into your body, what feels right to you. So from that, now also your gene keys profile also changes, because your gene keys profile, again, I also did another video about that, how you can actually manually create your gene keys profile from your human design chart, from your tropical and your true sidereal. And this is my tropical gene keys profile here, where again, my life's work, remember I had the gate 13 in my sun. And these are just some gates you also have in the human design chart, like your Venus, your Mars, your Jupiter, and then the sun and the earth mostly, and also the unconscious moon. But again, I'm not going to go into depth here now. But here on the right side, this is now my gene keys profile for the true sidereal version. And that's actually what I'm working with right now. And I freaking love it. And I also find there are some similarities with certain things. There's some very similar themes. And I find it beautiful, because one of the things too in the gene keys that always was so appealing to me or attractive is when Richard Rudd always talks about how all the 64 gene keys are relevant to all of us. And the more you study them, and I don't know if you guys have the book, but it's a big book here, the Gene Keys book. So it's very deep. It's deep wisdom. And the more I have studied this over the years now, there's a common theme about always slowing down, right? Trusting yourself. That's also what we have in human design. The big message of human design is get out of your head, get into your body, and tune in and trust yourself. Surrender to what life wants to channel through you so that you can channel that energy into the world through your unique gifts and talents that come easy to you, right? Kind of in a simplified form. And it's also this whole thing about following your strategy and authority really means to follow your body, to follow your intuition, and not make premature, quick decisions when we have amplified emotions, right? And again, I have found from all the readings I have done, there are so many similarities with a strategy and authority. The whole wait for an invitation with a projector is just very, very similar to the way to respond for the generators, right? And none of us, not even the manifestors, are here to make big decisions from the mind, right? It's always a body response. So this is now, yeah, the impact that it has on the gene keys. And this is now something that may trigger some people, but I want to talk about it. So one of the things that I have started actually for several months already, I started to talk with human design more about the 5 archetypes. And I put this graphic here, and this is kind of how I want you to start thinking about the 5 types. Obviously, if that resonates with you, right? Is that there's a lot of overlap. And I know I said this before, but I think with a visual, it's always easier to talk about it. And we'll talk about this in just a little bit. So right now, don't read it yet. I will get to that. So like, yeah, you can be one type, but all the other types flow into that as well, right? And I have done a whole masterclass about this, explaining why you may feel like other types depending on the energies and specific gates and channels in your chart. And you will also start to see over time that it really makes a lot of sense. Especially most people always say they feel like a projector because they feel like they need more rest, or they feel like, they're not here to initiate things. And the reason is, it's like most energies in the human design chart are projected gates and channels. So most of us have a lot of projected energy in our charts. And when we can see this in a more flexible way, I think it makes it much more beautiful. There's also something, for example, the money archetypes, if you know this. And there's something you have to take a quiz, and this is not based on the time you were born, but it's similar in the type where the thing tells you, okay, you are a maverick money archetype, and this is what it means. But based on your answers, you also then right behind that, you're an accumulator archetype, and you're also an alchemist archetype. So you are actually like a blend of everything. But there's one that has the strongest significance for you. And that's also how I see human design in some way, that you connect more with one type. Most likely that's the type that's in your chart. And it can change over time. Or with the different astrology behind, that type can change, and you can relate to lots of different types. And another thing in human design is that you can pull a chart from your Saturn return, right? Or even you can pull a chart from, we have something in astrology called progressions, right? So for every year, you could pull a different human design chart, and you're probably going to be a different type every year. But then we always say you still have your natal human design chart based on the time you were born. And here you can take your tropical or your true sidereal, whichever resonates more with you. And then you have your progression chart in human design, which again can be a totally different type again. And it's then for us to kind of see what are the themes there, right? And so here is a website which I have known about for years. And just recently, it really caught me to read this, like, because I also get their emails once in a while. So this Zen Human Design is where the ephemeris, I think it's called, this little booklet that has the transits of the tropical system. So basically it tells you where the gate is on a certain day. What planets are in what gates on a certain day, and how it changes over the course of the year, right? And I have purchased this actually through their website several times. And I have never met Ra, right? I wasn't around when human design just came into the world. I only have studied with the people that knew Ra. Like I have been studying with Karen Parker. I have been studying a lot with Richard Rudd. I mean, Richard Rudd more with the Gene Keys, but he also knew Ra, right? And the Gene Keys kind of were born out of human design. And he was heavily involved. He wrote several books about human design as well. So, and I only have heard what they say and what their experience was, right? And obviously they went onto their very unique path. Like Karen Parker developed the quantum human design language in a more like high frequency, very beautiful. She also always emphasized that you have all of the charts. That is something that really, really helped me not to see those 5 types even so strictly separate, but how it can kind of be everything. And then also Richard Rudd, you know, he came about with the Gene Keys. And this is based also on the 64 gates, goes back to the 64 hexagrams of the Chinese I Ching. And it's an evolution of that. It's a change, right? It's not how it was originally. And I think everything we have, just with astrology, like we come up with different theories, we evolve, we change it. Now we decide we're going to do it this way, just like they decided over 2000 years ago. Oh, let's just simplify it. Let's fix this to the seasons with tropical. Let's make everything 30-degree even, you know, and then we're just like, okay, this is now what it is. Is this going to be the truth for the rest of time? Well, we humans evolve, we humans start to question things, and I think we learn more and more to listen to ourselves, to listen to our bodies. And again, from that wisdom, which human design taught me, you know, I learned to question things. I learned to, okay, look into astrology with more like, well, maybe now I understand why it didn't resonate. And this is something now with the true Sidereal that just feels really true for me. So let's go back to human design now, what it says here. So we, Zeno and Chaitanya, I hope I say this correct. So we met Ra Uruhu in 1993 and became his associates with a task to establish the human design system in America. So they were like there in the very beginning, right? We were amongst his first analysts and teachers worldwide responsible for the spread of the information in the original human design school. For the first few years, the basic mechanics of human design were seen as a hypothesis to be examined over time in an experientially scientific way. So you see, everything was about, let's test this out, let's play with it. And this is also like human design is called an experiment. Human design is not like, you're this type and you're in this box and you're in this category and you cannot be anything else. It's like, take on the costume, see how it feels, and then you get to decide, right? And then it says, in 1997, however, Ra introduced his 4 types with their attendant rules of behavior, authority, and strategy, and subsequently insisted that these weren't absolute. Uninspired, now they call it by the infallible guru, this set in motion our eventual breakup, which was completed by the end of 2000. While Ra continued to build and refine his catechism, we continued our exploration based on what he originally presented. We refused and ignored everything he pulled out of his head after 1997. After a couple of decades, the result is a vastly different human design from what it originally was. So you see, there were here people, and again, I'm not here to criticize Ra. I'm so grateful to him. But the more I hear these stories, and I think it's important for us to listen to people, you know, what they actually experienced with Ra. And also, I think these people here, they were following their bodies. They were listening to what felt right to them, right? I also remember Karen Parker. She always said, like, she doesn't teach the variables because her whole gut and body was saying no to all of these things. So basically what this says is that in the beginning, there were no 5 types or 4 types. So if we say 4 types, then the generator and the manifesting generator is considered as one generator type. There's also different opinions out there to do it separate or to do it together. But basically, there were no types. And at some point, they looked at the charts, I think, and they saw some similarities, and then they created those types from that. Was that another download he had, or was it more to make it more commercial so it's more accessible for people? Could be, right? So, because again, strategy and authority for me is all about, well, trust your body, and if you have splenic authority, if you have sacral authority, even if you have emotional authority, it's always like feeling what feels right in your body, right? There's so much overlap with that. And we all can feel emotions if you have emotional authority or not. So I just found this very interesting, especially that it caught my attention so strongly just recently, because I think before I was just like, yeah, whatever, you know. But these are people that work with this for years and years and years. And so maybe there's something to that where maybe it's healthy for us not to categorize it so much into the types. But again, I think there's a lot of value when we can kind of see these types as archetypes. But again, you can be a blend of all of that. You can be multi-passionate, even though you're not a manifesting generator. You may need a lot of rest, even though you're not a projector, right? So we go all through different phases in life as well. So, and just because you're a generator type doesn't mean you have energy 24/7. I mean, there's so many myths also out there. So my whole message here is human design is so beautiful when we can really see it in an expansive perspective and how it all blends and how it's not here to box you in. It is an experiment after all. You get to experiment with that, but don't take it as a dogma, this is what you have to do, and now you cannot do anything else. Because I have people sometimes come up to me and like, well, I want to do this, but because I'm this type or have this profile, I think I can't. That's always a red flag for me in the way that I would say like, well, then I think human design is not serving you because it's only here to confirm something you already know about yourself and give yourself permission to go fully in and do the thing that you feel right in your body. But it's never ever here to limit you in any way or form. Then it's not serving its purpose, right? So take what resonates and leave the rest. And this is also why I personally have felt such a strong resonance with the gene keys over the years, because there are no types, right? We have no types in the gene keys. And as we know, Richard Rudd was a teacher of human design for years. And he was really pulled into those 64 gates and the 64 archetypal energies, which then became the gene keys, which are ultimately based on the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And he says it over and over again. We have all the 64 gene keys, even inside of our DNA. It's actually, he explains it in the beginning of his book. And I feel like it's just through those profiles that we start to focus on some gene keys first, and then we're being pulled to some other ones, right? And that's kind of our access point, and maybe some of them we resonate more with. And like I said, right now, I feel a very strong resonance with my true sidereal version of my gene keys. It doesn't make my tropical version wrong in any way or form. And I also find sometimes when people are saying, well, the tropical is a conditioned version of myself, it doesn't feel right to me, because no gene keys profile, in my humble opinion, or human design chart can be conditioned, because the conditioned way is always just a shadow. Every gate, every center, we can always be in a higher expression. So for me, there is no conditioned chart ever, if you ask me. It's just like working with those energies in the higher expressions, and not allowing yourself to try to fit into something that doesn't fit right. So that's the only thing, like with my tropical human design chart, there were certain things that had just a couple of things that just didn't feel fully right. And now with the true sidereal, it's just like, okay, now it just feels really right. And it was a beautiful learning for me to like realize that we can still be so susceptible to having this chart, right? To having this system, and just blindly believe that's what it is, that's what you have to be, right? No, you get to decide. You get to respond to that. You get to be discerning and only take the things that really feel helpful for you to see yourself more. It's just a reflection with that. So yeah, so this is with the gene keys and why I love them so much. And again, it works beautifully, but we don't have the types. And also at the end of the Pearl sequence, Richard Ruddy kind of mentions, well, and then you realize the biggest stroke of all is that, even though you studied now your profile, like all 64 gene keys are relevant to all of us. And it makes a lot of sense to me. It's just like the sun moves through all 64 gates or 64 gene keys every year, and so does the earth. And the moon moves through all 64 gates or gene keys every 29 days. So we all get to taste them over and over again. It's just that your birth chart has a very specific theme, right? That's kind of your starting point. And then from that, everything evolves in some way. And what I want to finish up with is like a question, or what I think. So my question is, are we asked to slow down? And some of you may know us. I have a podcast called The Art of Slowing Down, which I love. You should check it out. So what I realized is that in the tropical, I told you, well, I'm already in Aquarius, right? And here I'm not yet in Aquarius, so I am in Capricorn at the time that I was born. So, and if I look at the sky right now, I use the example again. So right now the sun is still in Pisces, but the energy we put out into the world from all these like astrology forecasts and the trends and everything is all like, we have been in Aries since the start of the spring equinox. And again, this is my personal experience. Like I haven't felt that energy at all. I have been very much in the emotionally watery Pisces kind of energy, more slow actually. And what I truly feel is that the tropical is going too fast. It's already in the future and we are not there yet. And look at the sky again. We are, well, it's still in Pisces. We are going to be in Aries eventually. But so it's almost like about a month-ish. It's those 31, 32 degrees where we haven't caught up yet what tropical astrology is saying. We're not there yet. And the 15th gene key came to me twice in the last week from clients I was working with. And something like was like, this makes sense. So the 15th gene key, the gift is called magnetism. And in the Gene Keys book, you will read it. It's literally called Hitting the Schumann Resonance. So this is a quote from the book. And it says in there, one of the greatest challenges for modern humanity is to learn to slow down. And magnetism is the binding force of all creatures and forms. The more deeply you move into the Schumann resonance, the more magnetic you become. So basically, the Earth is vibrating naturally at the Schumann frequency, right? But the way we humans are calibrated or conditioned is faster. That's why we're off. That's why we're sick. That's why we're not well. That's why we are too much in our head, because we're not allowing ourselves to be with the natural rhythm of nature. And this is what again, this is me intuitively feeling into this. You can truly make your own decision on that, right? But I really feel that this year is speed up. Did I say that right? And here it just feels more relaxed to me. It's like, okay. And I feel like I have to already forward bend myself into Aquarius, or if it's my Chiron here is already in Taurus, but really it was in Aries when I was born. So it's like I'm already ahead in the next sign or in the next energy, but I'm not fully present with actually what is. So my question is like, is this why we collectively are so rushed? Is this why collectively we always want to already be a step forward? Is this why as a collective we have such a hard time to actually be in the present moment? Because it's so hard for us to be patient. It's so hard for us to just be with the natural energy of the universe, which is a combination of the stars in the sky and Mother Earth, right? And again, I do feel that what is up in the sky, that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, we have eyes for a reason. We have like microscopes for a reason, right? We have astronomy. We have all of these tools available. And again, we just need to look into the sky, and just because we decided something over 2000 years ago doesn't mean we can decide something different. And again, if you feel like tropical astrology is your way and it feels right and good in your body, then please, right? I'm not making a case here to convert everybody in any way or form. But maybe deep inside you have been feeling there's something off. And at least what has been happening in my life for the last month and weeks, almost on a daily basis, people reach out to me, Annalena, thank you so much. I have never been so speechless. I just checked out my true sidereal chart, like, oh my gosh, I always felt something was off. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's really something to it. And I also have found incredible resonance always from my human design readings. I truly believe they always change lives, especially because I do them intuitively, right? I don't go like very dogmatic about the type, and I really tune into the energies. I ask people where they're at and how what I can see in the chart is really supporting that. So, and now I do readings, like I said, with both charts and integrate it, build the bridge. Because it's also, I think, for our nervous system, not easy to just jump from one to the other, but actually kind of see how that can progress into that. And I think that progression is about slowing down into our most truest essence. So again, explore with it, play with it, experiment with it, and decide for yourself what feels right. So maybe you want to stick with tropical. Maybe you feel now, oh my gosh, I really need to check out this true sidereal. And I'm going to put in the show notes some of the other videos I did also where you can pull your true sidereal natal charts, and also how you can pull your true sidereal. It's also called Cosmic. There's a website called Cosmic Human Design that is using the true sidereal astrology calculations for that. But again, be prepared. Your type, profile, all that good stuff is mostly gonna change. And the people that are in my world, they seem to be very open-minded like me. They seem to be very curious, and they actually really enjoy seeing a different perspective. And again, it's totally up to you what you want to work with, right? Also, if you're somebody that is using human design for yourself and working with your clients, you get to choose. Just like in astrology, when you book an astrology reading, I think people sometimes they don't even say what system they're using, but you have an astrology reading and it may be a system that you have never heard about, right? Because there are so many house systems, and we have Western and Eastern astrology, and then we have all these different house systems and how we can use the zodiac signs, like evenly 12 sizes or the actual constellations. So there's such a great variety, which I think is awesome. That is actually part of the experiment. And you get to decide what, fits you best. So have fun with that. Thank you for hanging out here with me. I really felt called to talk about this more because it didn't leave me. Usually when something comes to me several times, I'm like, okay, universe, I'm going to talk about it, even though like it may ruffle some feathers and rebel against what we are hearing in the mainstream about, human design and astrology. Like I'm saying, like what the majority of people are talking about as saying is the right way. So yeah, I just see it this way. And I have to be true to myself. That is something I have learned from human design, no matter what chart it's tropical or true sidereal or whatever. And I'm so eternally grateful for that, I have learned to trust what feels right to me. And I think it is my job to communicate that with you so that you also get to decide what feels right to you. So sending you all my love and my blessings, and I'll see you next time. Ciao, everyone.